Okay, so after seeing the title, the first question you've probably got is why? Trying to rush a trailer out the door this quickly seems like a bad idea. This is the first thing everyone will see when they head to my Steam page. I probably would want to put a bit more time into it. Well, here's the context. Hi, I'm Alex, or M3D, or whatever you know me by online, and I've been working on this little Metroidvania called Cycron for about a year and a half now. You're stranded on a space station which mysteriously went silent 2 weeks before you arrived, and you try and find a way out, while getting chased by this creepy monster who looks a lot like you. Remember that, it's kind of important for later. I think it's shaping up pretty well, and when I got an email from Steam talking about their Summer Next Fest, which is a big online festival for indies to showcase their games, I thought, sounds like a good time. So I'm reading their announcement blog post, and I see this. Visible on Steam as coming soon at the time of registration. Now that's a requirement for entry. And the registration deadline is April 14th. Oh. So normally this wouldn't be a problem, there's loads of time until then. Editing a quick trailer and finishing up the Steam store page shouldn't take me too long. Here's the issue. I'm still attending university full-time through all of this, so I had to do a bit of time management and planning, something all game developers are infamously good with. I wanted to release the store page on a Saturday to try and get as many eyes on it as possible and ride the Screenshot Saturday tag on Twitter, because I figured that'd be a good way to get some publicity. So at the absolute latest, the store page had to be published on April 10th, the last Saturday before the deadline. Valve also has a 3-ish business day review process before a page can go live, so the plan was to have the trailer done by the end of Saturday and uploaded on Monday to give enough time to approve it. Alright, so it's just a quick trailer. I'll start early on Sunday and have it done and rendered by the afternoon, and... Alright, so it is currently April the 4th. I have a math quiz on Friday. The Steam thing is due the 14th, and I have my final on the 22nd. So I've got to finish editing the Cycron trailer, start editing the Cycron trailer, and finish editing the Cycron trailer today. It's 3. Oh. Okay, so my time management theory was not boding well. Starting much later than I planned, obviously the first thing, we need some actual footage to work with. A black screen that just says buy my game probably wouldn't be very appealing. Kinda avant-garde. First thing I did was code in a quick hack in-game to hide the UI so it was easier to capture some more cinematic shots. I recorded a playthrough of the first bit of the game up until the first cutscene where this guy dashes across the screen and tackles this door. There's nothing else super cinematic in the demo, so I went back through and just did a normal playthrough for some general gameplay shots. I tried to play the game like somebody normally would on their first run-through, and get some footage of what the game looks like in its sort of natural environment. Normally this boss is pretty quick to kill, but this time I let him bounce around the arena a bunch to get some cool shots of it attacking the player and sort of hovering in midair. That was most of the footage I needed. The final shots I had to grab were some quote-unquote fun footage of some really odd or interesting situations that I'd kind of been thinking of in my head. For example, precisely dodging these copper blob thingies. This situation probably wouldn't happen in normal gameplay. I mean, it could, but it looks kind of funny in a trailer, and gives some interesting visual variety compared to standard running down a corridor and shooting stuff. I also went and grabbed a few shots of areas later in the game to sprinkle throughout the trailer and give some sort of visual variety, as well as showcase that the game doesn't take place entirely in this first very sterile station area and highlight some of the stranger or weirder environments. The trailer also needed some music, so I asked my sound guy Henry to do a slightly tweaked version of a track from later in the game. And he delivered. Henry also added a nice little music sting for when the game's logo and Discord link will appear at the end of the trailer. I think music can really make or break these sorts of things, so I got very lucky on this front that this wasn't something I had to worry about. Now it was time to actually start assembling the trailer, so for this I used Premiere Pro, which informed me that my trial had run out. So I made a new Adobe account with a spare email and signed up for another 7-day trial, which theoretically was 700% more days than I actually needed. The rough plan for the trailer was a slowish intro, some action, some funny shots, show the chase scene, story, a bit of mystery, rapid fire zoom out, sounds kinda weird, it'll make sense in a minute, cut to black, and then end on a music stinger with the game's logo, release date, and maybe a Discord link. That might sound pretty scattershot at first, but I've got a good reason for putting it in this order, and that's pacing. For this trailer I sort of tried to lay it out like a roller coaster with a bunch of sort of you know, you can, if you go on Google and like Google how to pronounce something, you can switch between American pronunciation and British pronunciation. American. What's the difference here? Right, for this trailer I tried to sort of pace it like a roller coaster with a bunch of peaks and troughs. Space out the interesting stuff, like the chases, action, and boss fight clips, so it stands out and the viewer has time to think about it during the slower sort of bits. For the slowish intro, I wanted to give some context as to where you were and why you're on this spaceship. It would have been easy to have a quick text blurb, but nobody likes reading. So instead I took a little bit from the opening cutscene of a ship crash and the main character lying on the floor to get the point across. Then we have a cut to the action bit where the player's doing a bit of platforming and sort of dodging enemies. It's very subtle, but the video actually does a small zoom in here to make the transition from player lying on the ground to player jumping a bit snappier. I used some footage of some general platforming and fighting the first boss to show off the basic movement and shooting, sort of let the viewer get a feel for what kind of a game Cycron is, at least as much as they can in the first 10 seconds. Then use that sort of silly shot of the player jumping over a bunch of the copper blobs. It's a small thing, but I smoothed the transition between these next two shots by roughly aligning where the player was on each frame and starting the zoom in the previous shot to match the new angle. And now it was time to convey a really important part of the game, these chase sequences. Now, they're not super frequent, but they add a lot to the atmosphere, and I haven't seen one in a Metroidvania since Fusion, so I wanted to make sure that the viewer really focuses on this part. The game sound is muted throughout most of the trailer, so to differentiate this bit, I quickly dropped in one of the monster's roars to grab the attention and signify that this enemy is going to be a lot more of an issue than the copper blobs from earlier. There's also a very brief shot here of the player's weapon doing nothing to stop it, unlike the boss who clearly flashed earlier, to further underline that you should be running away. This is then followed by several shots of the player running away. A fun sort of coincidence happened here while I was editing. The player's shooting, which is doing nothing, actually synced up to the percussion of the song. The next few shots are a little calmer compared to the chase at least, and sort of gives the viewer some space to breathe. You can see that aforementioned shot from a later area for visual variety, and the quick cutscene of the first boss tackling this door. And that's enough story for one day, so it was time to have some sort of mystery. I wanted to have the viewer see some more weird stuff that gets them interested in checking out the rest of the game, as well as show off a bit more of the game's atmosphere. So I chose this shot of the player climbing up this tall room in the dark with the camera pulled in really close to the frame to give a cramped feeling. And then I showed off a later area with some enemies and a strange thing which looks like it might be a weapon. This hopefully gets the viewer asking questions like, what's all of this and where can I see more of it? The answer to both of these being the game's Steam page, nudge nudge. There's also a quick shot of the player doing some more weird stuff with some very subtle colored lighting. And now it was time for the final part of the trailer, the rapid fire zoom shot, which I said would make sense later. In the track I chose for this trailer, there's a bunch of fun stabs near the end that I thought would be really cool to cut a montage to. This was actually one of the most time-consuming parts of editing the trailer because I basically had to run through all of my footage again and search for shots that were fairly action-packed that I hadn't used earlier. At first I just grabbed some older footage that I recorded to show off features to Henry and just hoped that nobody would notice they were at a significantly lower resolution and frame rate. Unfortunately, everyone I showed the trailer to did notice, and I had to go back and re-record those. This section was also good for focusing on some of the smaller details which didn't really fit in elsewhere in the trailer since the screen starts so zoomed in and pulls back across multiple shots. It made it really easy to focus on specific elements like some of the fun particle effects and some of the bosses in more detail without giving off too much what they're about. It was also a great place to chuck in the item get animation, which I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And then after all of that, once we've zoomed out, we cut to black and logo. And then cut to the release date plus Discord link. Henry made another good suggestion that the little sound effect transition here could use an accompanying visual. So I used Premiere's built-in sort of wave distortion to make the logo go all screwy, and then the next screen sort of TV static fuzz in, not sure what else to really call that. Fun fact is that the heavy distortion was actually easier to run than Premiere's built-in blur effect, the effects of which on my PC are pictured here. And with that, the trailer was basically done. I did a couple quick screenings of my rusty new trailer through Discord's screen share, with the consensus being, yeah, looks pretty alright. And with that, I rendered the trailer out, finished up the Steam page, and uploaded the trailer. Except you may notice that there's still a bit left in this video, and that's because it wasn't until after I rendered it that I realized Valve recommends you use a very specific preset to render your videos from Premiere. So pro tip everyone, read the f***ing docs. I was also sort of unsure about their stance on having links to external websites and videos like my Discord link, so I decided to just sort of erase that and scooch the title down a little bit, not wanting to deal with any sort of road bumps in getting this up. It was basically Monday evening at this point and I was scrambling to get this done. So it was time to re-render the trailer with Valve's Uber HD settings, which probably made a huge difference for my game with 12 pixels total. The effects of exporting under this preset on my PC can be seen here. And with that done, I was actually able to upload the trailer and submit the store page late Monday night. This upload date was cutting it very close, and I was really starting to wish I'd focused less on my degree and more on getting my tiny pixel game up onto Steam on time. I wasn't sure exactly how the review process went or what they were looking for, or if they'd stop me over like a typo or something, so I was really unsure if I'd actually get it up in time for Screenshot Saturday. Thankfully, I got an email from Valve on Thursday saying that we were all good to go, and from there it was just a matter of hitting the big release button on Saturday. Definitely learned some lessons from doing this. I really need to get better at time management, which I kind of feel like is the moral of the story for literally everything game dev and creativity related. All in all, I would like to avoid doing this again because it really wasn't great for my mental health trying to get everything done in time and also stressing about waiting for Valve to give some sort of approval. Even if the trailer was kind of rushed out the door, it seems to have done pretty well on the first 2 days at least. Hopefully this has been interesting to you, and I hope you might have learned something about what goes into making trailers for Steam games. Or if you already knew a lot about that, at least you got to laugh at my pain as I re-rendered an entire video for a 5-second change at the end. If Cycron looks interesting to you, please consider wishlisting it on Steam in the link. If this video does well, I'll probably do some more Cycron devlogs because this was pretty fun to make. So if you want more of those, consider sticking around. That's it. Thanks for watching.